Students, families, counselors, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining the CACRAO Virtual College Exploration Program. This program is in partnership with the Carolinas Association of Collegiate Registrars and also the StriveScan organization as well. A few housekeeping items before we begin with today's presentation. First and foremost, you're encouraged to ask questions throughout this session via the Q&A button that you see on your screen. When you submit a question, it gets sent to all of our panelists, and they'll work to answer the question during the session and at the end of this session as well. Your cameras and your microphones are turned off so the panelists cannot see you or hear you. So if you have any questions, make sure to type them in through the Q&A. And we encourage you to check out the rest of the CACRAO programming, which runs through next week. And you can find all of those sessions as well as recordings on the same website you went to register for this session. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to our panelists.
Awesome, thank you, Zach. Hi, everyone, and welcome virtually to Sewanee, or welcome to the domain. I'm Taylor Baird, and I'm an assistant director here at Sewanee. Before we launch in, I'll let my two other friends here introduce themselves just before we walk through.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeff Heitzenreiter. I'm one of the associate directors of admission here also at Sewanee.
Hey guys, I'm Mary Pryor and I'm a student at Sewanee. I'm a junior in the college majoring in politics and minoring in anthropology. I'm a resident of Rock Hill, South Carolina, but actually graduated from Charlotte Catholic High School in 2018.
Wonderful, thank you guys. So Jeff and I are super excited to present about Sewanee, but also to have Mary Pryor with us. That she's getting in some South Carolina and North Carolina love for us. So we will kind of walk through our presentation and talk to you a lot about the admission process at Sewanee, but we wanted to have Mary here to talk about the student experience and especially kind of coming from the same background of the state of North Carolina or state of South Carolina, having those kind of state dynamics to hopefully relate to your student experience and for you to ask her questions. And as we present, whoever's not talking, so if Jeff's speaking, I'll be monitoring Q&A or vice versa. So please feel free to chat in questions. You don't have to wait totally till the end, as Zach mentioned. So again, welcome to the domain. So when you think of Sewanee or the University of the South, that's just some phrases that we use to describe ourselves or this place. So we were founded as the University of the South to really bring the idea of a small liberal arts school to the Southeast. But we're in Sewanee, Tennessee, and I'll show you where that is in the next slide. But when you think of the connection of the university and the town, it's really one and the same. And I'm sure Mary will share more of her experience in a little bit of what does it look like to not only be a student, but then live in Sewanee and be a resident. And then as you can see on the screen, we have 13,000 acres here at Sewanee. We're all on campus today. And we're the second largest campus in the US. And so that just gives you all this room to explore, hang out with your peers, recreate, research, that's in your backyard. So Central Campus is pretty condensed. It's about 300 acres. But when you think of the land that we own, think more of a land trust, think of sustainability. We have a working farm. So that's really what we mean by the domain in this place. So as promised, I will show you what we look like on a nice fall day and then where we are in the state of Tennessee. So I feel bad now we cut off North and South Carolina in this image. So that was not intentional. I'm originally from Hendersonville, North Carolina. So if there anyone in Western North Carolina, shout out to you with the 828 area code. We are about, from Western North Carolina, about 4 or 5 hours. And so Mary, I'm sure you know the 6 to 7 hour drive from the Charlotte area or if you're Research Triangle. And then our Eastern Carolina friends, that would be a longer drive or an easy flight into Nashville or Chattanooga. You could also come into Atlanta pretty quickly. And that way, so about 2.5, or I should say 3.5 with the time change if you're getting up to Sewanee from Atlanta. So that also has a lot to do with the University of the South and where we were located. So at the time of the founding, it was really intentional to be like in a major railroad hub. So if you think of, we are more remote, that's a really, I think key component to discerning if Sewanee is the right fit for you. We are very much an all-in community. and nestled up here on the Cumberland Plateau. But you do have easy access to Nashville, Birmingham, Chattanooga, Atlanta, or back into North and South Carolina. So I will let you kind of digest the numbers on the screen. I want to give you more context outside of that. But when we say we're a small residential liberal arts college, you obviously see small meaning around 1,700 students. And that's predominantly undergraduate. So I like to tell students you're here with 1,700 other 17 to 22-year-olds. So yes, we are nestled in Tennessee or more remote, like I've mentioned, but with all of that energy, there's a lot going on campus. Jeff or Mary, anything that you wanted to chime in and that I've missed on this slide? No, okay. So maybe you're sitting there daydreaming about like playing around on the domain or getting outside at Sewanee. Obviously a big reason in discerning if this is where you might want to apply or go to school is your classroom experience. So if you want to look at this screen and kind of take all of that in, my corny joke to students is look at this as a menu of everything that you get to sample before you're committing. So when you think of the liberal arts experience, that is really more of our approach to the classroom. So that's not specific just to Sewanee, but that's definitely how we model it. You really have 2 years or 16 classes to explore what you might be interested in. So it's very commonplace for our students to declare a formal major or majors at the end of sophomore year. So if you come in and you're very specific or intentional, knowing what you might want to study or and you want to engage in that department or program, you can absolutely do that. But we still want to give you that lateral foundation. So that's how when I break down liberal arts, I think it's liberal in the fact that you're exposed to a lot. You're not coming in at one subject or subjugated view. So I hope that's helpful in thinking of the classroom, but also in our admission process, we aren't looking specifically for like what you want to major in. We're not admitting per major or program. So you are applying to be a Sewanee student and then developing that interest over time. So I'll pause there. I'd love to hear from Mary of your, I guess, like undergrad kind of general education experience maybe, and then if you want to share what you're majoring in and why you chose that.
Yeah, so I originally looked at Sewanee for the English major. That's what I wanted to do. Applied to a bunch of different liberal arts schools, knowing that I wanted to be a writer. I came to Sewanee. So Sewanee makes you pick before your first year here about 3 classes that are on the registrar's website that sound really interesting to you, 3 in a discipline you've never taken before or something that you're very confident in. So I ended up taking a couple classics classes, a mythology class, a history course in the history of health and illness in American history per se, and also a class in comparative politics. That class in comparative politics really kind of honed in my interest in the politics department. With that said, there are a lot of different gen ed requirements that are fulfilled by a lot of different classes. I'm not very science math based. So for my lab class, I took a geology course that really immersed me into Sewanee's 13,000 acre domain. I wasn't just sitting in this stuffy lab room reading. We were taking rock samples, writing field notes, actually looking at the morphology of the Cumberland Plateau, which was really, really cool. Not something I would have done anywhere else. It really kind of, for me, gauged an interest in what I wanted to do. As a result, I actually took a prehistory class that satisfied my religion general education requirement. And I ended up loving anthropology, and that is now my minor. So a lot of the classes you didn't expect to really find interest in, or typically what students really find is the major or minor that really interests them in the long run.
Wonderful. And before I hand it over to Jeff, I just wanted to mention our pre-professional programs, and then you'll also see this column of special Sewanee programs. So I mentioned, when you think of your Sewanee experience, it's really the 4-year undergrad experience. But that is not to say, so we don't have any grad programs fully here on campus outside of our School of Theology and School of Letters. So that means if you're coming in with that, or if you develop the interest of going to medical school or going to pharmacy school or law school, that trajectory can be fostered, and that's going to be a very specific advising track in addition to your major. So you have your course of study, and then that support system to make sure you're going to be a successful, and viable applicant to those programs. That you have your best foot forward in the foundation and how to navigate that. And then the special Sewanee programs are a handful of either on-campus or away or abroad programs that are designed specifically for Sewanee students. You're traveling with Sewanee students, in a handful of cases, some other students at other universities, but it's really through the Sewanee curriculum and with Sewanee faculty. So Island Ecology is a 6-week program off the coast of Georgia in St. Catharines Island. And then Sewanee at Yale is protected research positions for Sewanee students specifically in child developmental psychology. So those are a handful that are a little more ambiguous than I'm sure you can discern what a Sewanee semester in Spain might be. But if you have questions about any of those, whether it's in the chat or connecting me as one-on-one, we're happy to walk you through some of those programs.
Okay, there are a number of areas in an undergraduate experience, and specifically here at Sewanee, that are going to enhance what you're specifically learning in the classroom or maybe an outdoor classroom situation. And this slide highlights kind of 4 of those. Taylor was talking a little bit about study away or study abroad here. And at most places, I think happens primarily your junior year, but about half of our students will study away. Either in the fall semester or the spring semester. The internship research opportunity, we'll talk a little bit about more of all 3 of those when we talk about the pledge here in a minute, but Taylor mentioned that all of our classes are taught by professors. There aren't any graduate students teaching classes. And so the collaborative research piece, there isn't an obstacle between our students and their professors. They don't have to go through or work with a graduate student. They can go directly to their professors for those experiences. And we'll talk a little bit too about the summer internship opportunities. The Career Center starts working with students their freshman year to really help find those opportunities in the summers between the academic term and really enhance what they're doing in the classroom and start to explore potentially graduate or professional experiences. Taylor was also talking about this town. I mean, there are, what, 2,500 to 3,000 full-time residents. Our student population is 1,700, so our students make up a really big part of this community when they're here. And they tend to get very, very involved in this community. And the civic engagement piece, I've been here for a long time, and when I moved to Sewanee 30 years ago, we had the Sewanee Outreach Office, which was really one person and a part-time. Now there's an entire civic engagement department, and they have several people working with our students to get involved, not only in this community, but really kind of the greater southern Cumberland Plateau area to really get out and engage and help and do lots of work in this area. So Mary, in this slide, what are the things that you've gotten involved in that would fit into these categories?
Yeah, so Taylor talked on the last slide about Sewanee specific programs. In the spring semester of last year, I applied for the European Studies program, which has 2 tracks, a contemporary track, which is more focused on contemporary politics, economics, international and global studies, and then the medieval Renaissance track, which focuses more on art history, English, medieval studies, history. I was accepted into the contemporary track where I was supposed to spend most of July here at Sewanee with Rhodes students. It's a program we do with Rhodes College. So we were supposed to be here this summer for about a month, taking some global politics classes as well as history courses, and then travel to Lincoln College in Oxford for most of August. My track would then split and go to Berlin, Germany for 6 weeks. If that had been the case, I'd be in Berlin right now. And then the last 3 weeks, we were supposed to go to Strasbourg, France. So we were looking at conflict and peace, post-Cold War, as well as memory studies, German history and culture. So it's a really great opportunity, a very painless process in order to apply. Sewanee does a really good job. Jeff's going to talk about the Sewanee Pledge a little bit later, which makes it really, really effortless to apply. In terms of civic engagement, I do help out with our Office of Civic Engagement in different projects they're doing. One of those is the Hunger Walk, which helps fight food insecurity here in Grundy County, which is one of the 2 counties that Sewanee spans. This is the week for the Hunger Walk. So I'm helping facilitate 2 different teams, raise money. I actually am the leader of a Bible study through our chapel ministry. So my Bible study tonight is actually doing a hike for the Hunger Walk this week. So.
Very good, thank you. All right, moving on. Mary mentioned the Sewanee Pledge. So when you make a commitment to go to any institution, we really feel like there should be some guarantees. And so here's ones that we are going to guarantee, or we're guaranteeing to every student who comes to Sewanee. 3-pronged part of the pledge. Part of the first one. So I didn't, introducing myself, I should have also said I'm a parent of a college student and a former parent of a Sewanee graduate. Our older son graduated last year. So as a parent, the part of the pledge that I really appreciate the most as a person paying the bills, the third one, that you will graduate with 1 major in 4 consecutive years. That's a really important piece. And if you start to look around and talk to friends that are at other schools, that is not guaranteed everywhere. And in some places, it's very difficult to get the classes you need to graduate in 4 years. So that's a really important financial commitment there. Another part of the pledge is that we'll provide funding for a summer internship or research opportunity. We're going to talk a little bit in a minute about the Sewanee Career Center, but they work really closely with our students to help them look for and acquire internships. And then sometimes you're working with your department as well to find a research opportunity. And the guarantee is that in one of the 3 summers that you might explore those opportunities, really 4, you could do it after graduation, you could find, we will provide funding for that. So you apply, you get the internship, and then you apply for the funding, and we guarantee you'll get it once. And the people in the Career Center would say that actually most students who apply twice will actually get funding a couple of times. So that's a really good program. And study abroad, which Mary was talking about, you should be able to study abroad at no additional expense, meaning the tuition costs for study abroad programs that we're connected to, the tuition cost is exactly the same. So it makes that sort of program affordable to everyone. And in addition, your financial aid, need-based and merit-based, will travel with you and help you make that possibility very affordable.
Awesome. I'm going to unmute myself and intro. Oh, I'm on the next slide. Sorry, Jeff.
No, not a problem.
I got so excited.
Outcomes are a really good question for all parents and students who are considering a college. If I go to a particular school, where am I going to end up? And this slide kind of summarizes some of that. There's certainly more information on this Career Center website if you really dig into that part of it. One of the takeaways from this is that within 6 months of graduation, typically 96 to 98% of Sewanee graduates have reached their first destination. Some of those destinations, as you can see on this list, are continuing education, so they're in graduate study, and some of them are moving directly into a career. And you can see on the right sort of the general summary of where most of our alums, the 4 different professional areas that they end up So lots, if you go to our website, you can find documents that essentially for the class of 2019, for instance, we give you really good examples of the graduate schools and some of the jobs that students have acquired from the class of, I think what we have right now is 2019, and 20 will come out sometime in January and February, but a lot of good pieces there. Mary, what's your experience been with the Career Center?
The Career Center is by far one of the most awesome resources we have here at Sewanee. You go in there one time and they know you forever. Melissa Webb is one that comes to mind when I think of the Career Center. She is one that will sit down and talk about your resume with you. She did my entire resume for me, helped me write cover letters, really helped me through these ACE internships, which are Sewanee specific internships offered by alums as well as connections the university has made. She really helped me kind of narrow down some of the potential options I have for this coming summer as well as past summers. A really great tool in general. She will help you make your LinkedIn. The office does a really good job of reaching out to students through an app they call Handshake to know who's coming to campus. They will facilitate interviews. So definitely something that students do take advantage of, and definitely something I took advantage of my first year and every year since.
I overzealously chimed in. I was just going to say, between the pledge and careers, that with our location, and I think with what Jeff and Mary have kind of described about our students are really invested here. So you're kind of all in socially, academically. So it is pretty uncommon, I would say, for a student to carry an internship through the academic year. So framing, when you think about research or interning or kind of working with the Career Center, a lot of those opportunities are going to happen. Research could happen throughout the year, but a lot of that would take place in the summers, as we've mentioned. So I just wanted to be pretty clear about that. So the prep work and the intentionality is still there, very, very similar, but, we are really focused in the classroom and, potentially doing volunteer work or work study and other facets while you're in your regular academic year. All right, and so we don't put a lot of content on this slide. It's just to kind of set the scene of maybe why you decided to tune in to this CACRAO session and hear about Sewanee and hear from us. Whether you're junior, senior, or younger, what do you want out of, not just thinking about Sewanee, but what do you want out of your college experience? So Mary, we'll turn it to you. It doesn't have to be like all three. It could just be one or whatever you feel most passionate about. But, what has Sewanee meant to you and why would you encourage others to look at it?
As a college student, in retrospect, when I was in high school, I really needed a small school. The thought of going to somewhere like a big state school like North Carolina just kind of intimidated me. I really wanted somewhere where I felt like I wasn't just a number. Sewanee was definitely that place for me. I really wish you all could visit in person if you haven't already. We really tailor your Sewanee visit experience to you and what you want to see. For me, what really sold me was that sense of community, and it's not just amongst your peers. It's very multi-generational. So I walk a professor's dog. The professors will invite you over for dinner. You may get lunch with a community member that you've met through community service or another religious group or organization on the domain. You are all in. There's not a single point in time that you feel isolated. There's always something to do on campus. That was one of my biggest concerns coming from a metropolitan area like Charlotte. I'm used to going to my Starbucks or Target or those things in the afternoon, like right after class, or just going to concerts on the weekends. And you can still do that at Sewanee. Our theme houses and our residential life does a really great job of putting together events that make you feel like you're at home. There's always something to do, whether that's getting out, going for a hike, whether that's going to a jam session at one of the theme houses, dinners, they'll bring up food trucks, something to go on, well, something that goes on downtown. There's always something to do. In terms of tradition, I think some of our traditions are really, really cool and quirky and very unique to Sewanee. One of those is the Order of the Gown, which is what I'm wearing right now. I don't know if you guys can really tell. I was inducted into the Order of the Gown this fall. So after you acquire a certain cumulative GPA, you are gowned by a faculty member, an alum, a trusted friend here on campus. A lot of the pins signal our involvement on campus. Some people will put Hogwarts patches on their gowns, just kind of adding to that feel of Hogwarts here on campus. But people wear them for presentations, for big tests. These are also the gowns you wear to graduation. They'll pass them down in families, amongst friends. It's something that's really, really cool that you don't always get elsewhere. Another big thing I really love is our lessons and carols tradition, which typically happens around Christmas time. It's an Episcopalian service, but the whole entire community gets together to decorate and green the chapel. Each Greek organization has a column in the chapel that they decorate. Community members make roses out of ginkgo leaves and really just kind of adorn the chapel. So you're not just with your peer community, but also this generational community. That's so unique and so special. And I really feel like there's always somebody that's reaching out and hospitable. The last thing I'll say is the passing hello. One of those traditions that you don't necessarily see everywhere else. It's kind of an unspoken tradition we have here, that in passing you say hello to someone. And it really does kind of contribute to this field that it really truly is this hospitable community. Most of the people you see in passing are people you know and interact with every day, which is so cool. It's not just students, it's faculty members. You'll see the vice chancellor, students at the School of Theology, people like Jeff and Taylor, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I was going to mention, so Mary is our student tour guide, like she mentioned, so she's an Arcadian. And so someone asked me, I was on a virtual high school visit earlier, and a student asked me, where's my favorite spot on campus? And I said, this might sound really lame, but my office, because the passing hello and that kind of like collaborative spirit like happens for faculty and staff too. So to kind of echo Mary, like we are intentionally in this community too. And so it is fun when students come by and you hear, like we might work with you through the admissions process. And then once you're here and you kind of have your own involvement in life, it's fun for us to see you and you know what you're involved in here. And before I go over to the admission process, I just wanted to say that Mary mentioned Greek life. So we do have a Greek system here at Sewanee. It's really accessible and open. So it's one delayed. So when you think of coming to a college campus in that traditional fall semester, you're not going to be navigating that process quite yet. So you get to Sewanee, you kind of get your feet under you. And then if you want to go through that process, that would really happen in the spring semester. And then none of our events, whether it's social, a fundraiser, party, none of that is off limits to any of our students. So if you're thinking about that, that is unique to Sewanee as well. That a lot of our students participate in a Greek organization, but that balance looks a little bit different here. And then we're also, we have NCAA Division III athletics here. So if you're interested in being a scholar athlete, then we would love to see you participate here at Sewanee. About 30% of our students are athletes. We see a lot from North Carolina, so I wanted to make sure we mention that. All right, I'm gonna give you a moment to breathe, talk about the application process. And at this point, I mean, for some seniors, you might be like well into this process. You might be done, you might have hit submit. But we'll walk you through, what does it take to get in? What does that look like here at Sewanee? And so before your eyes really dart like directly to those blue numbers, want to intro it as, we kind of have a fun, lighthearted take on this, not to make light of the college application process, because it is inherently stressful. And there's also the reality that juniors and seniors, especially right now, you're doing this in a pandemic. And so one, props to you, you are navigating this, and just don't lose sight of like, this is going to pay off. You're finding your college home and it is going to work out. So, and we're here to help you. And we didn't specifically say this, but Jeff and I work with students, between the two of us, all North and South Carolina students. So it's going to be one of us that can help you answer some of these questions. But we try to streamline the admission process. So one, we're Common App exclusive. That's how you'll apply to Sewanee. And there is no additional supplement there. So if you've already been, getting that ball rolling, we look for the one personal essay. And I assume that lots of you are familiar with the Common App, but you really have 6 prompts and then the open-ended one. So you can share with us whatever is important to you. What is that dynamic piece of your application? And then there is that specific section, about how has COVID-19 impacted your life. So you are able to kind of free up your essay to write about something, intentional and personal, and then also have that section if you want to utilize it. So that's a huge part of us getting to know you. It's also a strong GPA, but we say strong, and so why I said divert your eyes from 3.78, because a strong high school GPA means a lot about where are you in school and what's been offered to you. What curriculum have you had access to take, and then your individual challenge for yourself. So Mary and I talk about Charlotte Catholic all the time, catching up on who might be interested in Sewanee, and that's one school in the Charlotte area. Think of how many schools, and then even in one school, so many different personalities and pathways and students. So that's our job, for me and Jeff, is to discern, great, here's this transcript and GPA, but what's the academic story? So know that, and how we review. And then we do look at scores if you are submitting them to us. So Sewanee has been test optional for 12 years. So it gives you the option, exactly like it sounds, to submit ACT, SAT, or no scores at all. So we can help counsel that decision to some degree, but it's up to you. Do you feel like your scores are an accurate representation of the work you've been putting in over time? If that's the case, and they're sort of in this middle range that we're advertising, then it can be great to submit your scores. But if you do feel like there's that disparity, or if you've struggled, or you really think the rigor in your academics is, telling a stronger story of who you'll be here at Sewanee, then that's exactly why test optional exists. I will say that there's no negative impact in admission nor in academic scholarships if you're choosing not to submit scores. So don't get stressed out about that. And we actually don't ask for anything additional. So there's no required interview or extra essay. The shift really does then go into your transcript and thinking of your academic preparedness. And as always, if there are questions there for us, we want to, if you're looking at a small school, you're also looking at a pretty tailored admission process. So we'll reach out if we have some questions about a class or, some sort of trajectory for you. And again, most schools will obviously advertise, unless there's like a hard set minimum, most schools will be advertising as we do that middle 50% or average for scores and GPA. So if you're above these, or if you're below, these aren't a hard set minimum or maximum, but that's where we see the bulk of our students who are enrolling, where they were sitting academically.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about deadlines. So most of you probably are familiar with the difference between early decision and regular decision. And sometimes there's a little confusion with early action. But the way to summarize the way it happens at Sewanee is there's essentially 2 options. Sorry, not 2 twos, just 1 2. So you can apply early decision, and you have the option of applying early decision 1 or 2. So there's a November deadline and a January deadline. and early decision is binding. And again, I think most people probably understand what that means, but essentially the summary of binding is that you've gone through the college selection process, and there is one institution that really stands up apart from all the others. And you really feel like, if I'm admitted to that school, that's where I want to go. And it's higher than any other school on my list. Probably also means you've done a little bit of conversation with your parents or guardians and have determined, yes, we think, based on what we're hearing, that we'll be able to financially make this work. So if you're admitted early decision, you agree to withdraw your applications everywhere else, and you pay a deposit at that school, in this case, Sewanee. So you have two options there. One is November, so that's students who really early in the process know they want to commit. An early decision two might be for a group of people they want to wait a little bit farther. They may have discovered Sewanee farther in the process, or discovered things about other schools that make Sewanee a little bit higher. So there's two options there. So there's early decision binding, and then there's regular decision. There's early action, which is like early regular decision, and there's regular decision. So both of those are non-binding. And the biggest pool of applicants to Sewanee every year will apply early action. The deadline is a little bit earlier. You can see there December 1, but you get a decision from us in January, whereas the regular decision students will hear from us in March. And I'm just realizing we're running out of time. So I'll say real quickly, if you're interested in applying for financial aid, you need-based financial aid. Taylor mentioned that everybody's automatically considered for merit scholarships, no additional process. If you want to be considered for need-based financial aid, you complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And as a parent, I've filled both of those out. And make sure you turn those in at the same deadline as whatever admission decision deadline you choose. And we are currently meeting 100% of the demonstrated need of every student who is admitted. And so that's a big commitment on our end to help try to make Sewanee affordable to as many people as we possibly can. So as we jump into questions, Taylor, I want to point out that someone is very interested in getting information about the Hippocrates Fellowship Program. And so I don't know if you have additional info there.
Yes, so I'll mention, and we're going to get all of your information, as was mentioned before, at the end of this session. So for really specific or tailored questions, Jeff and I will be following up just with time constraints. All of our fellowships, Hippocrates included, really, that's not something that you need to obviously get information right now, but you don't need to take any proactive steps in applying for those at this moment. So that will, for all admitted students in the spring, kind of that March, April timeframe, we will send out, notification of, here are the fellowships that we offer. Would you like to, apply for one of these? So whether that's a bond or leader application, Hippocrates, our fellowship in the arts, our Carey Fellows. So Carey Fellows, that's our business honors program, and then Hippocrates Fellows are going to work more in pre-med, pre-health. So I don't know if that gets to the essence of specific questions, but there are lots of fellowships, and right now just focus on applying to Sewanee. We can kind of have conversations about what those fellowships entail, but you won't actually sit down and take the action item of applying until spring of your senior year. And I'll just mention, because I think we have 3 minutes left, to give Mary some love, we really rely on our students. I think Jeff and I are here to guide you through the admission process, and we're happy to answer questions, but there is just something about the student perspective and that active 4-year experience that we can't articulate to you. So I'm a Sewanee grad, but I graduated 5 years ago. So it's a different, it's an ever-changing environment, which is great. You want that in your college experience. So if you have questions that you want to ask to a tour guide, hop on a virtual tour or sign up for a senior interview. We have, if just virtual.sewanee.edu, we streamline all of our visit options. So if you go on and click on a day, you can kind of check anything that you want to do. So I just wanted to give a plug for, we're here as a resource, but don't forget about even the friends that that might go to Sewanee, but then check in with our student leaders, or just you can't be physically here and stop a random student, but we've got a big list of students that you can talk to right now. Are we missing any? I don't have the Q&A up right now, Jeff, because I'm worried I'm going to not share my screen, but anything? Oh, Jeff, you're muted.
Sorry, we've answered all the questions. There's one question about senior interview and would we recommend that?
I think, so I would say like a blanket yes. If you want to connect with a student, and just like we don't have a formal interview process here at Sewanee. So if you're signing up for a virtual counselor appointment, it's a conversation with your admission counselor. Very similar to a senior interview. It's just instead of meeting with one of us, you're meeting with a senior at the college to kind of talk about your experiences. So if that is something that you are going to find, enjoyable and find merit in, then absolutely. Mary, do you have any parting good wishes or advice? I know we're right at time. It seems like we will get the boot from StriveScan.
One of the biggest things is definitely keep in mind those options. I'm a tour guide. I'm a panelist. I also tend to help out with other events on campus. So seriously, reach out to any of us. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. We love talking about Sewanee. We take a lot of pride in Sewanee. I am gung-ho Sewanee. So I am happy to answer any questions you guys are thinking of or have any questions about student life. We're here for you as a resource too.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Sewanee representatives. And thank you, students, so much for joining us. When you close this window, a very quick 4-question survey will appear. Any feedback that we can get is greatly appreciated. And we do still have some sessions going on this week, so we would encourage you to check them out at www.CACRAO.org. The recording of this session, as well as all other recorded sessions, will be available at that same website, CACRAO.org. Thank you so much.